3, 4.
Rev up your engine!
Now, here's some important news. If you own one of these Fords that they're buying back, there's more than 2 million people involved in it. There's a deadline, and it's September 25th. They're not going to let you file after that. You have 6 years from the date of purchase for one of those Focuses or Fiestas that they're buying back, and if that's passed, it's 6 months from the beginning of them talking about it. And guess when 6 months is? September 25th. So you only have until September 25th to file it. And if you want to start arbitration, October 5th is the last day you can start arbitration. So listen to old Scotty. You got one of those Focuses or Fiesta that had those horrible dual clutch transmissions. Some people have gone through 3 or 4 or 5 of them. Quick, do something about it now. They're going to pay up to $20-something thousand. Of course, you're going to be haggling. My own personal customers that have done that, the most I saw any of them getting was $2,500. Who knows how that's figured out? I mean, I've done videos on that before. I mean, who's to say, oh, well, this one looks in good shape, we'll get you more. What difference does it make? They built the car wrong. They have problems. They should be forced to buy them back, period. Not, well, that one's in worse shape. Hey, they should be forced to crush them, too. I don't know what they're doing with them, and they're not saying what they're doing with them. But to me, if they're buying them back, they should be forced to crush the cars and not sell them. What they did here in Houston after the big floods from hurricane, they put a bunch of the cars that were flooded on an old racetrack south of Houston, and they lined them up, and they made it, you can't sell these cars. They ended up crushing them. Once the insurance adjusters went through, most of them were crushed. They should be forced to do that. But you only have until September 25th. So if you own one of these, you don't know about it, get on your horse, make your claim with Ford, say, I want to sell this back to you. Why not? But, you know, it's like everything else. They have a certain date, and after that date, tough beans. They're going by legal stuff. Now, this covers 2012 to 2016 Focuses and 2011 to 2016 Fiestas. That's what's covered. You own one of those? Quick, before September 25th, get your claim in there. And if you're going to do your own arbitration, you have until October 5th to start that up. So keep that in mind if you own one of those things. Big Dave, limo driver, says, I'm interested in buying an '08 Jeep Grand Cherokee that's stuck in limp mode. How do I fix that? To begin with, I never advise you to buy any vehicle that has a relatively serious problem like that. The problem with limp home mode is when the computer sees a relatively serious problem, it turns into limp home mode. There are dozens of things that can cause that. Anything from something as stupid as a bad Maf sensor or crank sensor that doesn't cost all that much to an engine or transmission that's worn out. Unless you are a mechanic and you can get a good scan tool, hook it up, and find out what's wrong, I wouldn't even think about buying it. There's too many things that can go wrong. It's like people say to me, I got a car, the AC doesn't work, I'm thinking about buying it. Then I say, do you really have to have AC? If you live up in Buffalo, New York, and you don't, go right ahead. But if you live in Houston, Texas, you don't know what's wrong with that AC system. You're never going to know what's wrong with it until it's fixed. AC systems can break in many ways. It can be as simple as a hose that costs $100 to taking a dash apart and replacing an expansion valve and evaporator that could cost you $1,500, depending on the car. So you're buying something used. If it's not working right, unless you're a mechanic, don't even think about buying it. It's stupid. You're gambling too much. You know, I mean, if you see the door's broken, well, you see what it costs to fix the door. Go right ahead. The wheel's bent. Go right ahead. But if it's got a serious problem, it's in limp home mode, I'd stay away from it unless you're a mechanic. And you can analyze it right away to see what's wrong with it. And even then, why buy somebody else's problem? Let's say you don't know, so you take the mechanic. He says, well, this is going to cost that. Then you buy it and take it in, and he was wrong. And you find out, no, he wasn't right. It didn't need the sensor. It needs a new engine. Stay away from that stuff. That's my advice. Trav asking, Scotty says, thanks for sharing your knowledge. I got a 2014 Corolla hatchback in Australia, 25,000 miles. There's a pungent smell outside the car when we park it. No lights and no codes. But the history, I hit a bump once in the spare wheel plastic holder and there was a slight bend in the metal, a mud flap. Numero uno. Always check the obvious things. Exhaust systems get super hot. If you go over a plastic bag or something, it'll get stuck and it will stink. And it can stink for months. So check the whole exhaust system. Make sure nothing's melting out. Now, you didn't say you broke a plastic piece. Look to see if stagnant water is sticking in there or, and I've seen this before, dead animals. If a mouse or something got in there, you ran over something, a piece of a dead animal got stuck where it's broken, it will stink. When I was a young mechanic, my grandfather came in the garage. I would close at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. My grandfather would open at 6 o'clock in the morning. I came in the next day and he said, "What did you do in there? It stunk. The old garage stunk." I said, "Well, I didn't do anything. Don't look at me." So we had a car that a customer had brought late at night, and I'd brought in and locked it inside. We put it up on a lift, and lo and behold, a dead cat was wrapped around the drive shaft. And man, did it stink. So look for dead animals, too. You never know what you're going to find. And since you hit that bracket, something might have got in there, mouse, rat, or something, and died, and it's going to stink. Jury to God 21 says, I got an 04 Jeep Liberty, 179,000 miles, automatic transmission. It's a hard time going up a hill. It won't go any faster unless it's a little slope and very slowly. Let me know what it could be. My gas mods, I've only been getting 17. It should be 20 to 22. Not accelerating up. That's under load. When you have a problem under load, a lot of things it can be, but you always want to start. You're getting bad gas mileage. Start with the simple things. Change the spark plugs, air filter, fuel filter. If that fixes it, hurrah. Now, if not, pressure test the fuel pump. And of course, like I said, change the fuel filter first, because if it's clogged, you get a bad pressure reading, and you might put in an expensive fuel pump that's working fine because the fuel filter's clogged. Change the filter and it still does it. Pressure test the pump. If it's weak, it'll do exactly that. Now, the other thing that can do it is your catalytic converter could get clogged up. It's got 179,000 miles. That's the exhaust system. If it's clogged, the engine can't breathe the exhaust out. When it's under a load and it's got to push it out, it can't. And that can easily be pressure tested. We mechanics, we just take out the oxygen sensor, put in a pressure gauge, and if we see normal pressure should be practically nothing, maybe half a pound, maybe 1 PS hops, and if it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 PSI before the cat, that means it's clogged up and you need a new catalytic converter. But a lot of times it's just a tune-up or an air filter or a fuel filter. Jacob D says, my sister has an 08 Infiniti EX 35 with 106,000 miles, automatic transmission. She bought it used for $9,500. Is it a good car? Is it about to become an endless money pit? Well, I guarantee eventually it'll be an endless money pit. And it has 106,000 miles on it. And it's 13 years old. She way overpaid $9,500. There's no way the car's worth that kind of money. I've had customers buy those for $3,500 here in Houston. And for $3,500, what the heck, a good gamble. But for the kind of money she paid, if she didn't put that many miles on it each year, change the oil every 5,000 miles, maybe it'll last quite some time. But eventually, and I've never seen one that had 150, 160 on it that wasn't starting to become a endless money pit. So have her baby it and drive it and see what happens. But now, let's say your sister was like my sister was, lead foot, drives like a maniac, it's going to fall apart faster. If I was her, I'd try to unload it if she could for any serious money, because it can go fast. It's like a typical Japanese car. Even when they're old, they can still go fast. But then they fall apart as they're going fast. Where you get like an old junky American car, hey, when they get old, they won't go fast. So you can't worry about it. But the Japanese, they'll just keep going until they blow up. And then you're looking at a lot of money. So depending on how she drives and how many miles she puts on, it's eventually going to be a money pit. But she overpaid. She's going to lose her shirt if she sells it now. She might just baby it and see how long it lasts. Your boy Louie says, Scotty, I'm interested in buying a 2020 Chevy Malibu. Should I buy the Premier Malibu with the 2-liter turbo engine, 9-speed automatic, or the LT model with a 1.5 turbo engine with a CVT? Which is a better buy? I don't want a Toyota. I've always been a fan of GM cars. Okay, you want the best Malibu, go get a 60s Malibu with a V8 engine. They were nice cars. Unfortunately, Chevy makes junk now, and those little engines are absolute garbage. I wouldn't buy any of them. It's your money, you know. I mean, if you do get the 2-liter, at least it's a bigger engine, and it has less chance of going, but, you know, it's a turbocharged one, too, and believe me, it will fall apart as its age. And just look at the history of Malibus. Look to see, what do they go for, the late model ones? When they're 5 or 6 years old, they go for nothing because they're junk and everybody knows it. And you're buying a new one, you're paying a lot of money. I just hate to see people waste their money on a vehicle that isn't going to hold up over time. But if you must, get the 2-liter one. At least it's somewhat bigger, and it probably won't wear out as fast as the 1.5, which is smaller, and will just wear out faster. They'll both wear out fast, though. Neither of them are all that well made. They just keep making small engines, turbochargers to make them go. Chevy had enough problem with non-turbo engines. You start turbocharging, you're adding fuel to the fire to make them burn out even faster.
So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.